Thank you very much. Right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Dorset Council Northern Area Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Sherry Jesperson, Chair of this committee. This meeting is being live streamed to the public, and a copy of the recording will be available on the Dorset Council's website at a slightly later date. Before we start, I'd like to take an alphabetical roll call of the members who are here, please. So as I call your name, could you unmute yourself, indicate that you're here, and then mute again? So off we go. Councillor John Andrews.
Present.
Thank you. Councillor Tim Cook. Councillor Les Fry.
Good morning, everybody. Present.
Councillor Matt Hall.
Present.
Councillor Brian Heatley.
Good morning, I'm present.
Councillor Carol Jones.
Morning, present and correct.
Councillor Emma Parker. Councillor Mary Penfold.
Good morning, everyone. Present.
Councillor Val Pothecary.
Present.
Councillor Belinda Rideout.
Good morning. Present.
Good morning. And Councillor David Taylor.
Yeah, good morning, President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've also a number of Dorset Council officers with us during parts of this meeting, and they will introduce themselves the first time they speak. Members, just to let you know that this is the last meeting that Fiona King, our Democratic Services Officer, will be looking after us. She's moving on to a scrutiny role, so congratulations on that, Fiona. We will miss you, and I know you would all like to join me in thanking Fiona for the way that she's looked after this committee over the past months, particularly the virtual meetings, which have been challenging for all of us. From our next meeting on, we will be looked after by George Dare, so we'll be very pleased to welcome George when at our next meeting, and I know that Fiona will be there in the background if needed. And just so you know that in the producers chair today we have Megan Rochester, so welcome Megan. So then a brief word about procedures for the benefit of people viewing the meeting. So we have two planning applications to consider today. For each application, I will invite the case officer to present their report and recommendations, followed by presentations from other officers. Members of the public have been invited to submit written representations to a maximum of 45 words. These submissions have all been seen by members of the committee. Up to 3 submissions in support and 3 submissions against can be read to the meeting by a council officer. Now we hear representations in the following order. So members of the public, the town or parish council, the ward member who can speak live to the meeting, and finally the applicant. The total time that we're allowed for public representation being 15 minutes per application. Now, following these representations, members can ask questions of matters of clarification, and then after that the committee will deliberate and come to a view, at the end of which we will take a vote by roll call. Again, as I call your name, you will answer for, against, or abstain. That's how we do it this morning. So moving on to our agenda then, agenda item 1, we have, I think, some apologies. Fiona.
Yes, Chairman. Apologies from Tim Cook and Emma Parker.
Thank you very much. Members, do any of you wish to declare an interest in any of the items before us today?
Yes, Madam Chairman, Councillor Matt Hall. I wish to speak on agenda item 5B, Littlefield, Sherborne. I would certainly say that I am predetermined.
Right, okay. Are you the ward member?
I am.
Right. Then if you are predetermined, then I would invite you to speak in the ward member slot, but you won't be able to participate in the discussion or vote. So I'm making a note now, note to self. Fiona, you'll remind me when we get there that's in the ward member slot. We're hearing from Councillor Hall. Thank you, that's very helpful. Anybody else with any declarations of interest? Agenda item 3 then, please, could we confirm the minutes of our previous meeting to be correct? Can you indicate in the chat bar if you have any objection to the minutes? I'll give you a minute to do that. I'm seeing nothing coming through, so I will take those minutes as a correct record and I will sign them in due course. Some of our parish councils are very efficient. They're able to sign their minutes, but I'm going to have quite a pile when we finally get back to the office. Public participation I've covered, so moving on then to our first application, which is agenda item 5A. This is for 40 affordable homes at the former North Dorset District Council site at Norden. We are asked to consider reserved matters. You will remember, councillors, that outline permission, including layout, highways and access, and the section 106, these have all been agreed way back in July 2018. We saw this application in May of this year when we made some small non-material amendments to the layout. So today we're solely concerned with reserved matters of scale, appearance and landscaping. We're not here, indeed we may not, revisit matters that have already been determined. Before I ask Robert Lennis to present his report, I would just draw members' attention to the paragraph in his report referring to the summary of the sustainability. You will remember that we had a conversation with officers after our last meeting asking for more of this information, and this is the first time that there's been the opportunity to do this. So I would like to say, and I'm sure you would agree with me, to Robert and the other officers, that this is very helpful that you've included more detail there. So thank you very much indeed. So Robert, over to you for your presentation.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Let me know if that comes up, please. Can you see that?
Not just yet. You generally take through. Now we can. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning, councillors. As Sherry briefed, this application is the Reserved Matters application to the grant of outline planning permission for the development of the site of 40 dwellings, and the access and layout have already been agreed, which leaves matters of scale, appearance and landscaping for you to consider today. I trust you've all had an opportunity to read my report, so I won't, I'll try not to labor on that too much as I go through the presentation. This is the site outlined in red before you. And here's an aerial photograph of what the site looked like a few years ago. You can see that there are a number of trees on the site through the central part of the area, of the site, and in the back northeast, well, northern corner. These are some of the outbuildings that were built over the years to accommodate office work for North Dorset District Council. And moving along, this is the Blanford Forum Conservation Area. As you can see, there are no listed buildings near the site. The site is up here, and as I said, there are no listed buildings near the site. The site is found on the north side of Blanford, northwest. Sorry, I get my directions right. Is located on the northwest side of Salisbury Road. The surrounding area is suburban in character. The site is relatively flat. If you've been on site, you will have seen this. It is within the Blanford Forum Conservation Area, as you see here, and the frontage of the site is designated as important open wooded area. And here is the approved layout of the site. And you can see that with this layout, that some of the trees in the central area needed to be removed. We've retained the major trees in the site. Moving along to the before I launch into the planning considerations of scale, appearance, and landscaping, I would note that the Blanford Forum neighborhood plan has progressed since the time of the outline planning permission. So whilst the principle is accepted, because we have already agreed the principle and layout, we won't be going back on those matters. And whilst, if anybody's had a chance to read the Blanford Plus neighborhood plan, let's acknowledge that the permission here has already been granted, so they don't labor the point of this site. Here before you, you see a street scene. The scale, as we said, was suburban in character, which is 2-story, sometimes 2.5-story. All the dwellings on the site will be 2 stories, as you see in the street scene. So in terms of scale, the proposal is considered to be acceptable. In terms of character and appearance, you can see that with officers' negotiations, we've had features added to some of the feature buildings, like as you enter the site here, you'll see a 2-story bay, both on this flank elevation, and 2-story bay on the front elevation here. We've got 2-colored brick, which is a nice design feature, and finials along the roof edge, which you'll see in some of the next drawings. So this is a bit closer up for you to get.
Can I just interrupt you a moment, yeah, Robert? Because it's difficult to hear you. There is some noise in the background, so I'm not sure if anybody has accidentally left their microphone. Could they deal with that? Because it's quite difficult to hear Robert over the noise in the background. I'm very sorry to have interrupted you. Please carry on, Robert.
No, I keep getting a warning. I understand, Sherry. I keep getting a warning that I have a bad connection here. Apologies.
Yes.
The salient point.
Yes.
The salient point of those last 2 slides was that the scale of the development is 2-story in nature, in keeping with the character of the area. As you see here, some of the detailed design. Again, I'm getting a bad quality flashing up on my screen. Apologies.
No,
so in terms of,
yeah, you're fine now. Thank you. Carry on.
So, moving along, then, this plan is for materials. As you can see, I've enlarged the key for you, so sometimes you can't see anything with these slides. So I purposely enlarged this so you could understand where you're going to be getting. I'm pausing because I got a bad network quality again. You can see where the facing brick, as well as where we're getting some slate and other tile, weathered brown tile features. This slide shows you the boundary treatment. So there is some small boundary treatment along the trees to just protect the root zone a bit. They will be open features because at 0.5 meters high of a knee-high rail, people will easily be able to walk over and enjoy the amenity of the trees. And that's what it's about, as I would say. You want to enjoy your environment. Moving on to some of the details. We see here the finials along the ridge of the roof, chimney features, and two-story bays. This was for plot 1. So moving along, you have plots, appearance and scale for plots 6 and 7. I zoomed this one in to give you an understanding of some of the relationships that are going to be happening with neighboring properties. In the report, officers consider there's the layout and design is suitable, and there would not be a seriously detrimental harm to any of the neighbors. Here's another example of one of the more plain dwellings. I thought it important to show you an example of a plain dwelling as opposed to something that has all the bells and whistles on it. And it's still a high quality, good design. Here's the appearance of the terrace, one of the larger groups in the site. This building here is plot 36. And if I'm not mistaken, a second here, we will be getting a bathroom window added to this elevation. It was something I was insisting upon. Maybe it's a pet peeve of mine. I like to have a window in the bathroom. And this is a 3-bed house, so I was insisting on it for that property. And then you have the appearance for the other gateway dwelling, number 40. Again, we've talked about that. One of the other properties that had raised concerns in representations was the relationship between plot 19 and the other neighboring properties. As you can see here, the rear elevations, we consider that the distance there is such that there wouldn't be an amenity issue. Moving along to landscaping details. Again, I've enlarged the landscape legend so you can get an idea if you haven't already looked at the plans. They're fairly detailed. There's a good amount of additional planting going in, but also protection for the trees. As I said, you're getting the short kneeler rails. You're getting some hedging put in appropriate places. And here's the next landscape drawing. These 4 trees here, we have agreed to have those switched because our landscape officer thought that this species was going to grow too large in this location, and we'll need to add a condition if it's not already in the update sheet. I'll explain that in a second. Here's some photos for you of the Old Norton Building. It is agreed that decision's already been taken to demolish this and build the dwellings. This is the lodge house that is in the south, no, it's actually just the east corner of the site. That's still in the ownership of the council that we use as a satellite. You can see some of the major trees here that are going to remain. It's a lovely site. Along the street frontage, you can see that these conifers are going to be removed, and some of the low-lying hedging that bordered the brick wall. But in the materials, you will have seen that they are putting in a new brick wall here at the gate entrance to satisfy design concerns of the conservation area. The key planning matters, as I've labored through this presentation: the appearance, scale, and landscaping. The conservation officer and other officers have found that the design is acceptable. On neighbor amenity issues, I've pointed out officer's opinion on that, and we find that acceptable as well. Chair, with the exception of a condition being added that notwithstanding the details on the approved plan, that the 4 trees in front of units, plots 1, 2, 3, and 4 shall be changed. We're recommending the grant of permission subject to the conditions and the amended plans as noted in the update. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Robert. And I apologise, not that I can do anything about it, but I apologise that the sound quality wasn't as good as we would wish on that one. But I hope you all heard every word of Robert's excellent presentation. Thank you. Now, the highways matters are already agreed. So we have no presentation today from Steve Savage, our highways officer, but I think he is available if there are any questions. But as I say, highways are already agreed. So we move on now to public presentations to be read. Who is our reader today?
I am Chair Alison.
Thank you, Alison. Right, okay, and I think the first one today is John Turnbull. Alison.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John Turnbull, against the application. The outline application was approved by committee in February 2019 and a lot has changed since then. There are 350 homeless households in Dorset, and in September there were 475 people on the housing register for Blanford. Allegedly, the application before you is for 40 affordable dwellings, which, when approved, will only legally require Astor to provide 8 dwellings for social rent and 4 with shared ownership under the Section 106 agreement, with the option of 28 open market dwellings. Any other tenure arrangements, i.e. the 40 affordable dwellings, have to be only by agreement between Astor and Dorset Council, with no legal enforcement. If Astor does not provide 40 affordable dwellings, then DC only have the option to pursue this provision through the planning legislation, lengthy with the right of appeal, and does not allow DC to go straight to court. In 2018, North Dorset was the least affordable rural part of the country in terms of house price to local earnings, and matters have only got worse with COVID-19. In October, 9,475 people were claiming out-of-work benefits in rural Dorset, up from 3,775, representing 4.5% of the working population. You will be approving an application which allegedly will provide 40 affordable dwellings, 32 shared ownership, and only 8 affordable rent. With the catastrophic economic effects of COVID-19, the ability to raise a deposit, obtain a mortgage, and pay the rent on that part of a shared ownership dwelling still owned by Astor is going to be nigh on impossible for a great number of people. The real need is for affordable rented properties. NDDC's own affordable housing policy required 70% to 85% of all affordable housing to be rented. With only the legal requirement to provide 12 affordable dwellings, I predict that within a very short space of time, Astor will be submitting an application to remove the affordability of the remaining 28 units on the basis that the scheme is uneconomically viable, and these 28 units will become open market houses. Astor has a proven track record of requests to vary S106 and affordability agreements. For example, Mampits Lane, Shaftesbury, with an application to remove the affordable requirements due to funding and valuation problems. only this month, Sovereign Housing Association at Buxton Road, Weymouth, has reneged on their offer of 18 affordable units to now provide only 6. DC admits they can only enforce 6 under a SAS 106 agreement. Be warned, this will happen at Norden, and you will have on your conscience the loss of 28 much needed units of social housing for the 475 people on the Blanford Housing Register, unless you vote ideally to refuse, but more realistically defer this application. That's all, Chairman. Would you like me to continue with Blanford Town Council's comments?
Yes, please, Alison.
Thank you. Blanford Town Council against. The Town Council objects to the application and welcomes the fact that it is being considered by committee. Norden currently retains Conservation Area CA status and is therefore subject to policy B11 of the B+ Neighbourhood Plan, which requires 1. Consistently high standard of design and detailing reflecting the scale and character, including the layout of trees, development plots and building form. 3. No harmful impact on the townscape and roofscape. 4. The retention and protection of trees and other open areas which contribute to its character and appearance. Paragraph 2. All planning applications within the CA must demonstrate how the design proposals have sought to preserve and enhance the significance of the heritage assets and their setting in line with the recommendations of the character area appraisal. BFTC therefore requests a re-examination of the decision to demolish the Edwardian Villa, a heritage asset and key feature of the CA, and that other uses are explored. More of the 26 mature trees are retained. It is essential both the density and balance of proposed dwellings be addressed to meet the need locally of rented accommodation. The pandemic has drastically altered the mortgage market, with deposits of 15% required. Rented properties are needed more than ever. 75 to 80%, see Mr. Turnbull's submission. There is no evidence locally that shared equity is required. BFTC would suggest a reduction to 30 dwellings. A LEAP play area forms part of the development as the closest play area is half a mile away. Building design should at least reflect the character of other buildings in the area, in particular the Victorian almshouses opposite and the predominantly eastern side of the Victorian Edwardian Salisbury Road. They should be built to the highest modern and energy efficient specifications. The entrance relocation would bring it closer to the busy junction of Salisbury Road and King's Road, a major thoroughfare to the Blanford Centre. The current hub with both vehicles and pedestrians has already increased the volume of traffic and parking congestion in this area. As a result, the position has already witnessed several near-miss accidents, one involving a cyclist who fell in front of a car as it emerged from the DC hub site. Retaining the current main entrance would also diminish the necessity to remove several substantial trees. BFTC is consulted on naming roads and parts of the development. BFTC also objects to the S106 on the grounds that the overall delivery of affordable homes has been changed in this application from 100% to only 30%, 12 units, which has significantly reduced the reason and justification for damaging the CA. That's all, Chairman. Would you like me to continue to the applicant's submission?
No, we'll hear from Councillor Byron Quayle first and then the applicant. Councillor Quayle, The microphone is yours if you're with us.
Thank you, Chairman. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. We can't
Thank you, Chairman.
see.
And,
Yeah, good.
sorry?
Thank you. No, excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, committee members. I'll be speaking on behalf of myself and Councillor Lacey Clark. I know he's in this meeting as well. We would urge the committee to vote against this plan. I'm aware I can't talk about the 2,000 signatures in the petition or the shameful way North Dorset came about to this position that is in front of you today. So I won't do that. I will speak specifically on scale, appearance and landscape. With regards to the scale, this is overdevelopment in the area and landscape and appearance. North Dorset, in their wisdom, chose to ignore the fact that this development was in the site of the conservation area. You've already heard from Blanford Forum Town Council that in relation to policy B11, that no harmful impact to the townscape and roofscape would happen with any development. This will adversely affect the townscape and the roofscape and have a massive impact on our appearance. It will change the town forever, fundamentally. Also, the retention of trees, which is fundamental to this area and fundamentally why this area was put in the conservation area. The retention of the Norden Building and the trees is part of that scale and that appearance. This development will change all that fundamentally. Regarding what I would argue is the overdevelopment of the area. Now, I'm aware that outline permission has given permission for 40 properties or dwellings. Retaining the Norden Building to include one-bedroom dwellings, rented one-bedroom dwellings, would actually serve the people of Blanford far better compared to what has been put in front of you. And I would mention some of the points that was brought up by Blanford Town Council, but I won't go back over information that you've already heard. I would also like to just say that the original outline permission did not take into account the massive impact on highways. This development will massively increase traffic. It will affect the outlook of the town, and it doesn't address the needs of the town. I know we are at the stage where the scale on appearance and landscape, which has nothing to do with the current conservation area, has to be considered. And I would urge councillors, yes, we are aware, we're not trying to be a bunch of NIMBYs here. We understand that development has been given. This is the wrong development, and I urge councillors to vote against it. Many thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Quayle. Can we now hear, please, from Alison, the response on behalf of the applicant from John Hammond.
John Hammond, applicant. Thank you for the opportunity to present the applicant's case for the redevelopment of Norden. This is the final stage in securing a legacy to the former North Dorset Council, and in presenting the applicant's case, there is an element of mixed feelings about the loss of Norden, given I spent some very rewarding years working at Norden. However, from a pragmatic view, I can also respect the council's decision that its legacy should be the delivery of an affordable housing scheme. The last North Dorset Planning Committee resolved to approve the principle of redevelopment, including the replacement of the original building, Norden. They also approved the layout and access, leaving you to consider the appearance and the height of the dwellings, as well as the new landscape planting. Following that committee, efforts were made to get the decision called in for Secretary of State review, as well as seeking to get Norden declared an asset of community value. Neither succeeded, leaving you free to approve the final stage before Astor can get on site early in 2021 to deliver the affordable housing. Your officers have asked Astor to make changes to a limited number of dwellings and to revise the landscape planting, replacing a single tree species. Both requests have been agreed by Astor. Indeed, their design revisions go far beyond the Conservation Officer's request. As such, you have confidence that the scheme does respect the conservation area and the principles established by the outline permission. When I submitted this application, I posted an update on LinkedIn. Liz Goodall responded that the redevelopment represented a fitting legacy to North Dorset. I would agree with Liz and urge you to approve this reserved matters application. That's all, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed.
Chairman, Sherry,
Yes,
would you like me to respond to some of those comments?
I would, but I'm going to just limit how many of those comments that we talk about first, Robert. So I'll just, if I may, we've heard a number of comments there. But committee, I must remind you that this is the final stage of this planning application coming before us, and matters of layout, including the decision to demolish the house and go with the layout that we've gone for, and the proposals for trees, all of the highways matters and access, and the Section 106 agreements, that all of those have been raised, but they're already decided, and they were decided way back in 2018, and they're not for us to discuss. We're not at liberty to reopen that discussion today, and they are not before us today. So we must confine ourselves to those matters that we are being asked to decide, which are about the appearance of the buildings that we're being, not the layout, but the appearance, and the condition with regard to replacing some of the trees. The Section 106 arrangements with regard to the number of affordable homes. Again, members, please be very clear, that has already been determined. That's not before us today. However, there was a legitimate and interesting question raised in the previous, so even though it's not before us, I'm going to ask Robert if he would just explain why we consider this to be an 100% affordable scheme, in the sense that that's how we think of it, those of us who were with North Dorset, but why the Section 106 specifies only the policy compliant amount. And Robert will explain that to you, and I think give you some comfort on that. Robert, could you just address that point, and then any others that you'd like to mention? But as I say, I'm really not minded to go back over old ground, however interesting that might be. We must confine ourselves to what we're being asked to decide today. Robert.
Yes, thank you, Sherry. The policy position that we're able to secure, and it's because of our policy position, is 30% affordable. If we try to secure any more of that in the Section 106, they could, as people suggest, come back and get that taken out of the Section 106. So our policy position was to secure 30% by the Section 106, but that doesn't mean the land agreement that the council signs with Astor has to be that. As a matter of fact, Astor was chosen because they're a registered provider. And it's my understanding that some or all registered providers find it nigh on impossible to get funding beyond the 30% with Homes England, because Homes England is looking to put in their accounting books the uplift or the change to providing additional affordable homes. So if they come to Homes England, Phil Crowther can correct me if I'm wrong on this later, but if they approached Historic England with a scheme for 30% affordable housing and say, well, we would like to change this to 100% affordable housing because we are a registered provider, and then they're in a better position to get that grant funding. So that's the point on affordable housing, Sherry. Does that cover your? Okay.
Yes.
And a couple of other matters that were raised in the representations. As Sherry said, we're not able to revisit the decision. Can you see the layout in the screen, Sherry?
Yes, thank you.
So if the machine works for me. The conservation area was not ignored at the outline application. It was clearly demonstrated. I think even Historic England were there to speak at that time. The request for a leap is not being entertained because we do have a lap on the site. You will have seen that under the trees. And over here, if you can see the arrow circling what's called the pavilions, that's a large outdoor play area. So it's about a half a mile away. And it was considered at the time of outline that that was adequate. Town scale and roofscape, well, we've already addressed that. This is largely a suburban area of two-story dwellings. What you're getting is much the same. There was an attempt to get the decision called into a judicial review, and that was refused. I've got bad quality, sorry if you can't hear me. And so the starting point is what was approved, and this is your starting point. You have the access and layout. With regard to trees, we all like trees. It is difficult to see some of these trees go, but if you, this circle that I'm making with the pointer is the group of trees that's saved on the, I'll go back to the outline or the layout. Those are being saved. So some of these trees are being removed and some of these trees are being removed. And there was a arboricultural assessment at the time of outline application. These aren't, I don't think any of them are class A, or, and besides it's already been decided. So I wanted to just point that out for your conscience. And you'll see that this is that group that's being saved, that big bunch with the copper beech here with the lap underneath it. And officers have looked at this, your conservation officers looked at this, so as your landscape officer and myself, and we're prepared to support this subject to the conditions we've already discussed. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's our presentation. Then can we have some questions, please, from members? And can I just say, I will not tolerate any comments coming through on the comment board from any members who are watching this who are not members of the committee. I absolutely will not have that. Councillor Jones, you wanted to ask a question.
Yes, please. You'll have to excuse my ignorance because I'm just a little bit confused on the affordability. So the application has come through as 40 affordable, but what we're actually saying is only 30% of those, so 12, should definitely be affordable. So is there, do ASTA have leeway with the other 28 at putting them up at full market house values, or do they have to still have an affordable content? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit confused on that one.
All right. Yes.
Do you want me to take those in turn, Chair, or do you want me to wait?
Yes, please. Thank you.
The policy position is we can only secure 30% by our standards. We have, in selling the land over to ASTA, made an agreement with them to provide 100% affordable. And I don't have those terms before me.
So my understanding is, and Phil, you can correct this. We specify policy compliant 35% in the section 106, because if we were to specify higher than that, that makes it difficult for a registered landlord such as the applicant in this case to then get further funding from Homes England. So they are eligible for possibly for funding from Homes England for building affordable homes that are what's known as the uplift, in other words, the extra affordable homes that they will build over and above the policy compliant number. Now, if our Section 106 agreement said 100%, then that would be much harder for them to claim that any of it is uplift. So that's part of the reason why we specify, and in any case, we can only specify what's policy compliant, strictly speaking. However, I think it would be fair to say that we are confident as we could humanly be, that it is ASTA's intention to build affordable homes on this site. They are a registered social landlord. That's what they do. And that has been the discussion that we have had with them, or that North Dorset District Council and then Dorset Council has had with them throughout this. So I personally am as confident as one reasonably can be that that is their intention, but that's the explanation for why we specify the policy compliant number only. Phil, have I got that correct? Or don't let me say anything that's wrong here, but yes.
Sorry, Phil Crowther, I'm a solicitor employed by the council advising the committee. Yes, in a nutshell, that's absolutely right, Chairman. The main point is that, and the planning reason is that we can only seek to secure policy compliant affordable housing levels, and that's what the Section 106 agreement does. And as Robert said, if we didn't do that, we'd almost certainly be facing an application to go back to the policy compliant level, and we would find it, I think, at its lowest, very difficult to defend an appeal on that application. And then the practical level is, as Robert and Chairman have said, is that there are funding issues for registered providers in securing funding to provide 100% affordable schemes, where Section 106 agreements require provision over and above the policy level. So there's two reasons. There's the planning reason, as in the local plan policy requirements, and then there's a practical funding reason for the developer. Thank you.
But I would just remind the committee yet again, that the Section 106 is not before us today. That is already determined. So I'm happy that you're all clear about it, but that it's not for us to discuss that today. That is already decided at outline matter. Councillor Rideout, you have a question.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I don't seem to have a camera. I've tried to rectify it, but it won't work. I just have a question for Robert, please. You mentioned in your report, condition 4, about a landscape management plan. Has that come forward yet? And you spoke about making a bespoke condition if it hasn't come forward. It's referenced to long-term design objectives and management responsibility and maintenance schedules. Can you just tell me how long is long-term? Because it's important, very important site. It's Iowa. And it's obviously within a conservation area, but I am concerned about the longevity of the trees. Thank you.
Robert. Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Chair. We didn't get the updated plan for the changing of trees as at the front of plots 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so I've suggested a condition that, notwithstanding the details of the approved landscaping plan, those 4 trees shall be agreed and planted. And then with regard to condition 4, as you point out, the landscape management plan, we can make that, I'm confident we can make it a longer term. I'm going to go for 20 years on agreement with the applicant. I think that's about the stretching it. Those typically landscape management, depending on the site, can be either, we tend to go for 5 or 10 years, but given the importance of the trees in the conservation areas, we'll see if we can get agreement to go for 20 years on that.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. That's just what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. Councillor Fry.
No,
I beg you, no, Councillor Taylor. I'm sorry. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks very much. I'm confused here. It's like we're all over the show with this application, because the fact is it was sold for 100% affordable. It's gone down to 35%, now 10%. The trees are in danger. It's all over the show. I don't know where we're quite going with this. Can I have some clarification, please?
Yeah, yes, yes, indeed. Thank you. I would just remind you that the Section 106 is not before that has already been determined. And most of the yeah.
I'm just where we're going. Yeah, I want to know where we're going with this.
Right.
Chair.
Robert, could you remind members specifically of not all the matters that we're not able to discuss today, but precisely those matters that we are? That would be helpful.
Thank you, Chair. You have on your screen before you the approved access and layout.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah.
That's your starting point. Anything to do with the access layout and the principle of development, that Section 106 agreement, has already been decided. So that's your starting point. What is to be considered today are matters of scale. That's the height of the buildings and volume of the buildings, which we've said is acceptable because you're in a residential area and all the houses around you are 2 stories in height. Okay. The next matter that is to be considered, because there were only 3, scale, appearance and landscaping. Okay, so we've ticked off scale. Appearance, you're a conservation officer and myself, and have worked to get amended schemes, and we've shown you some of those drawings of what they look like. So in terms of appearance and character of the area, we've achieved what I'd like to think is a fairly good design, and Astor has a track record of building this quality material. There is a terrace of houses just down the street from this site along Salisbury Road that I walked past many a time at my lunch break and looked up at them because they're a bit up on a bank and thought, you know, those are pretty good houses. And then when I found out they were a social landlord, I went, I'm impressed. So on this application specifically, we're satisfied with scale and appearance, and then you move to matters of landscaping, and I deferred to my landscape officer, and he is satisfied with the details of the scheme. So what you need to decide today, now if your opinion is going to be different on those matters of scale, appearance, or landscaping, please be specific, and that's where we're going with this, but the officers are recommending approval subject to conditions.
Okay, so if you're looking at appearance and scale, is it overdeveloped? I would say it looks that way. Is it overshadowing as in landscape? Yes, it is. And also the fact is that's a conservation area and it's got a historic building there. So where is this all going? Because I can't.
I'm sorry, Councillor Taylor, there isn't a historic building there, in the sense that the decision, whether we like it or not, the decision about the Norden building is taken, and the layout is agreed. We do need to stay focused on what so in terms of matters of scale, we've just had it explained to us, it's matters of height and volume.
Okay.
In matters of appearance, it's about whether or not the design of these buildings, the look of the buildings is acceptable. And finally, the landscaping, which the landscaping officer has agreed. And I'm really going to have to be fairly firm with the committee now that we do try and confine our questions to those matters, because we really don't have the luxury of discussing decisions that are already made. I'm going to, can I ask you to pause, Councillor Taylor, and I'm going to take a few more questions and they might clarify things for you, but I'm happy to come back to you. Councillor Fry, I'm going to ask members, please, could you confine your questions, please, to matters of scale, appearance and landscaping? I don't want any more questions or statements about matters that have already been decided. I think we've made that very clear. Councillor Fry.
Sorry, Chair. This is a really important matter, and out of respect for our colleagues in the Old North Dorset District Council, we do have some concerns over this site and the way it's been done. Particularly, I'm looking at the officer's report, point 1. That appears to me to be the application comes before the planning committee as the property is owned by the council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right, then if that's the correct, as the seller, we have the right to put whatever conditions as conditions of the sale onto that property. So I would like to recommend a condition is added that this site is 100% affordable homes, whether that's rented or for sale, please.
That's not before us today, Councillor Fry. We are not discussing that matter, so we are not able to make that condition.
Sorry, Chair, but the chair, but the panel, when they decided to sell, knock down that beautiful Elizabethan thing, the area is a conservation area. The decision has been made, regrettably, in my opinion, to knock down that beautiful building there, which is part of Blanford's historic past. The panel, the committee decided that they wanted to sell the land as a legacy for affordable housing, to leave something to the community. That's not happening already. We've gone from 100% affordable down to 30%. Where is the next issue on that one? So I think as the council owns it.
Councillor Fry, could I please
comment on that quickly? Just a very brief comment. Sorry, Chair. Hannah Smith here. I think the difficulty, I completely understand the concerns, Councillor Fry, but the difficulty with placing a condition on the outline at this stage is that it would actually prohibit ASTA from bringing it forward as 100% affordable. That ASTA are planning to bring it forward as an 100% affordable scheme, but as Phil and Robert have already pointed out, the Homes England funding to enable that, to actually make it work in financial terms, is dependent on the uplift from the policy compliant affordable housing situation we've secured up to then the 100% affordable that ASTA want to provide.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay. And I will remind the committee that that matter is not before us for consideration today. That decision has already been taken. Councillor,
can we have the what did Historic England say about the site, please?
It doesn't matter. The Historic England, Robert, did Historic England have any comment to make on the matters before us today? Scale, appearance and landscaping.
I also have a further comment about renewables, please, in a minute.
Yeah, is that a question or a comment? We'll come to comments in a sec.
I need to reply as well.
Historic England didn't comment on this application insofar as they just reiterated their disappointment in the original decision and left the matters of details to your conservation officer and myself.
Thank you.
Chair, Robert,
do you have another question, or do you want to just let me hear? Do you want? Is it a question or a comment?
It's a comment in relation to the climate change bit. It's nice to see on point 14 climate implications there, but actually there's no content in that. There's nothing about how the development will actually sustain the climate emergency. Nothing about renewables in that at all. There's lots of, for want of a phrase, waffle and some talk about the trees and landscaping, but nothing actually in there that talks about renewables at all.
Chair.
Okay, thank you. I would like you to withdraw the word waffle, Councillor Fry.
I withdraw that word and I use
our officers work very hard. Thank you.
I think that's been sent in by the developer there, the way I read it.
And that's correct, Chair.
Yes,
Chair,
thank you.
Whilst I appreciate where the councillor is coming from on these matters, and as we've discussed previously, we don't have the leverage to insist on matters that he's referring to. We can't insist on solar panels. We can't insist on those things. That's down to the developer and building regulations. But I would say that what we do look for, and it's embedded in the planning system, is sustainable development. And in that sustainable is the lifetime of the development, and Blanford is a sustainable location to be having this sort of development. People can walk through the downtown area from this site, as I did when I used to work there. So there are some sustainability credentials there, but I appreciate that they're not up to some of the standards that we hold personally.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you, Robert. I have next Councillor John Andrews. Is this a question?
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Trying to get the camera on. Oh well, you don't want to see my face anyway. The one thing I'd like to ask on landscaping is a play area deemed to be in a landscaping policy, because this is going to be 40 homes with young families with a play area that's quite a way away. Just asking.
Robert, the play area, is that in the landscaping, or is that already, again, part of what's already been decided?
It's the lap. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Yes.
The lap is part of what's already been decided.
So we're not going to have a play area there.
We have a lap.
A local area of play.
Right.
It's more geared towards smaller children, under, I would say under 5, under 7, but
yeah. Okay.
Okay, are you happy with that? Thank you. Such background noise. Councillor Heatley, are you wanting a question or a comment?
I do now have a question. If
right, you can go ahead with the question. Lovely, thank you. You're muted, Councillor Heatley.
Right, better?
Brilliant.
Thank you. Glad to see the much longer climate implications piece, and I think it is absolutely right to put into that not just the building itself and its insulation and energy and so on, but also where it is and what it generates in terms of travel and so on and so forth. So that's good. Like Councillor Fry, I was disappointed there was nothing there on the nature of the building itself and its energy performance. But so I went back to the North Dorset plan, and you discover incorporate measures to meet the current national targets for energy performance. My question is, do we have comfort that it will indeed do so? It may be that just comes down to building regulations, but I would at least like to know we're getting that much.
A good question. Thank you, Robert. Could you respond to that question?
Chair, maybe you can help me with that question. It was, is the development going to meet building regulations?
Is the building at the very least up to the standards required from the North Dorset local plan? Indeed, I would hope that we've got a bit of uplift from that.
In short, yes. The developer has to meet building regulations. There's no two ways about that.
Yes.
And what we have done is push the design issues.
Yes.
And as we've discussed, we're not able to push the standards issue beyond what building regulation has for us.
Yes.
So beyond that, I'm struggling with the question.
Okay, well, I think I get the gist of the question, and I think you've answered it. Has that answered your question, Councillor Heatley, in the sense that we have got everything that our plan allows us to ask for? I
fear it has. Thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you very much. I know exactly where you're coming from. We all hope for more every time, don't we? And sometimes we get it. I'm now going to move on to comments, and I have Councillor Rideout who would like to begin the discussion. Councillor Rideout.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to firstly say I have huge sentiment for the Norden site, having started there my career as a district councillor.
And I supported the late councillor Esme Butler in opposing any redevelopment of the site, which included the demolition of the lovely Edwardian Norden building. So I'm just going to get that out of my system to start with, because we were outvoted. That's done. We have now to concentrate on the planning application before us and make sure we get the best possible result and legacy for Blanford. It's a brownfield site. It's sustainable in terms of facilities and public transport. It's a traditional design. It's got feature buildings. I love the way they've incorporated the old entrance piers and plaques in the front wall. And it's got chimneys, yes, finials, bays and coins. They're all brilliant in design, and the layout retains a significant number of the trees. Yes, I'm disappointed there's no on-site leap, local equipped area play, and there is the potential for less affordable housing. But with reference to the scale, the appearance and the landscaping, I'm very happy to support this proposal with the tree amendments as described.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much. I have Councillor Heatley now to make a comment.
Thank you, Chair. It seems to me that our position on this is very, very strongly conditioned by the outline permission that has already been given. If you give an outline permission which says you may build 40 houses on this site with that layout, it is almost bound to cause continuing concerns from people who revered and liked the old site, but it seems to me that given the constraint, this is in terms of appearance and scale and landscape a perfectly acceptable development of that site, given that it was going to happen. Can I say one other thing, which is a little bit of comfort on the section 106 and affordable housing point? I am, as a ward member, I participated in a Western and Southern Planning Committee meeting 2 weeks ago about the Sovereign Homes application, which is referred to in Mr. Turnbull's evidence. It was exactly the same situation. The explanation that was given then was exactly the same as the explanation here, except that that committee was in a position to either accept it or not. It wasn't that the position was already determined by a prior outline permission. And after quite a lot of debate, that committee did decide that it was happy with this arrangement and that it was happy broadly with the assurances they had from Sovereign that this would in the end up with 18 affordable homes. I think that's relevant because I know people are worried about that, and I was very worried about it in the case in my own ward, but I was convinced that the arrangement seemed to be all you could reasonably do. And if there is an agreement between the council and ASTA, it would be nice to see a bit more of the terms of that. But if there is such an agreement, it seems to me that that shouldn't be something that people are worried about. Thank you. That's
very helpful. Thank you very much, Councillor Heatley. You're saying that we've had a proposal for this from Councillor Riot. Where you're saying you think this is acceptable. Are you there seconding this?
I'm prepared to second it, yes.
That's very kind. Thank you very much. Councillor Pothappery.
Oh, next.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chair, I'm on next.
Have I missed someone?
Councillor Taylor, right to reply, under Brian Heatley.
I'm one down from that. Councillor Pothappery, could I ask you to hold your fire there while I bring David Taylor in, who I appear to have missed? I apologise.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I've just reiterated what's been going the full flavour of this application is the fact of affordability and the fact of it a scale. It's just to me that it's been knocked to the side and is going ahead. Why can we not grapple this and say it will be affordable housing?
I think we have covered that. We are, the section 106 is not before us at this meeting today. That has already been determined. We are not being asked to consider that today. Councillor Apothecary.
It was such a legacy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a difficult one, and it was always going to be a difficult one given the past history. I've heard the word acceptable a couple of times in Robert Lennis's presentation, and I think that's about where we are. Acceptable. It's not wonderful, it's not great, it's just acceptable. I'm disappointed, to be honest with you, that there aren't more elements of significance and character built into the design here. But I do understand that probably the trade-off is good design versus affordable rented, and affordable rented, in my opinion, is what's desperately needed and what was hoped for, the legacy that was going to be left. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I've seen a ride out. Did not actually say in terms that she proposed. Councillor Rideout, just for the record, can you say, did you mean to propose? Are you happy to propose this?
Chairman, I'm happy to propose.
Thank you very much. So we have a proposer and a seconder for this application with the revised condition that Robert has explained to us. Before I put this matter to the vote, has anybody got anything else they wish to say on the matters before us?
Chair,
yeah.
There were a couple of updates in the update that was circulated, just some plan numbers, so please make reference to that as well.
Okay, yes, please. Can we make sure those get into the minutes so that that's just to make sure that the conditions are accurate. That's quite right. So with the updated numbers that were circulated to us and the extra condition with regard to the trees and landscaping, I have had a proposer and a seconder, and I now propose to put this to the vote. I will call your name.
Can I put an RTS in there? Are we able to condition more of the affordable houses, have something in there that goes towards supporting the Old North Dorset at all?
No, we're not discussing the affordable housing. That has already been determined. We're discussing scale, appearance and landscaping. Scale, appearance and landscaping. All right, I'm very sorry, but that's how planning works, and I know it's frustrating, but this was all determined back in 2018, and it's not for us to turn it over here today, however much you might like to do that. And I'm afraid I must hold us to the matters that we are able to determine today. And and that doesn't include revisiting the section 106. I'm very sorry. So we have a proposer and a seconder. We have a recommendation to approve this with the revised conditions Robert has explained to us. Can I now put this matter to the vote? I will call your name alphabetically, and will you say whether you are for, against or abstaining? Thank you. Councillor Andrews.
I hate doing this, but I'm going to abstain.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Fry.
Against.
Councillor Hall.
Against.
Councillor Heatley.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Penfold.
For.
Councillor Apothecary.
For.
Councillor Rideout.
For.
Councillor Taylor.
Against. Thank you, Chair.
That is then carried. Thank you very much indeed. I don't know if members need to take a break. I'm very happy for us to press on to the next planning application. If you are, indicate in the chat box if anybody is not happy to push on. That's Councillor Fry would like 2 minutes. I think we can give you 2 minutes, Councillor Fry. We will therefore we will therefore take adjourn the meeting for 5 minutes for a comfort break, and we will come back again at 20 minutes past 11. Thank you very much.
Coming through if you wrap my present.
Well, welcome back. I hope you're all comfy and had a mince pie while we adjourned, and we will now press on with our meeting, and I would refer you to agenda item 5B. This is an application for 10 dwellings at Littlefield in Sherborne. Again, more affordable houses, this time from Magna Housing, which is another one of our registered social landlords. I will invite the case officer, Emma Telford. Emma, to present your report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I will just share my screen.
Thank you. Take your time. There we are. I have it. Looks as if that's worked.
Okay, perfect. So this application is at the site Land at Littlefield, Sherborne, and it's for the erection of 10 dwellings. I've just got an aerial photograph to show you its surroundings. It is majority surrounded by other residential development. You've got Littlefield here, you've got the properties of Ridgeway, and then you've got Nook Road and the properties of Nook Road down here. Sorry, I'll just change my cursor there to make it a bit clearer. So yes, you've got the properties of Nook Road down here, the road Littlefield, and the properties of Ridgeway up here. The site used to have garages on it, but they have since been demolished during the course of the application. The next slide we've got is the site plan. You've got access here of Littlefield. As part of the application, this access is being widened. You've got a unit here which is comprised of 2 maisonettes. You've got a terrace of 5 here, and you've got 2 3-bed dwellings and 3 2-bed dwellings in the middle there. And then you've then got a terrace of 3 properties. Again, you've got 2 2-beds and 1 3-bed, and the scheme includes 21 parking spaces. This slide shows the elevations for the terrace of 5. All the units on the site would be of modular construction. This top picture here shows the front elevations of the properties, and this bottom picture shows the rear elevation of those properties. And then you've got the side elevation is that front elevation of plot 1, which means it faces onto the road. The next slide is showing the floor plans for that terrace of 5, again showing that mixture of 2 and 3-bed properties. This is the elevations for the terrace of 3. You've got obviously the front elevation at the top and the rear elevation at the bottom. And again, the floor plans for that terrace of 3, showing 1 3-bed and 2 2-bed properties. This is both the elevations and the floor plans for those maisonettes. So they're both 1 bed, so you've got 1 on the ground floor and 1 on the first floor. I've included some street scenes. The top one is showing the side. Sorry, I've lost my cursor. The top one showing the side elevation of those maisonettes and the front elevation of that terrace of 3. This middle street scene showing that terrace of 5 with the existing properties of Littlefield behind. And then this bottom street scene is showing that front elevation of plot 1 and then you've got the existing properties of Nook Road behind, and then you've got this side elevation of that terrace of 3. This first set of photographs was to show kind of the existing access arrangements on that Littlefield. I've already set out that obviously the road would be widened as part of the scheme, and we're also looking to secure a pedestrian drop curb opposite this existing pedestrian access. So we're securing the provision of a drop curb here so that pedestrians can cross the road and get back up onto the pavement opposite there. These next photographs obviously show the site itself with the garages demolished, but it's also to show that relationship with the existing properties of Nook Road and the existing boundary treatment with those properties. These next photographs, the one on the left is showing the boundary treatments with the properties of Ridgeway, so that rear boundary treatment with those. And this one on the right is showing the relationship with those existing properties of Littlefield and that boundary treatment there. This next photograph is taken from the pedestrian access at Nook Road. So we're looking across the site at that existing access of Littlefield. And again, you've got the boundary with the properties of Ridgeway and the existing properties of Littlefield here. This next photograph is just showing that pedestrian access off Nook Road where that previous photo was taken from. In terms of the key planning issues, principle of development, the site is within the DDB, affordable housing. The scheme is looking to provide 100% affordable, 5 being social rented and 5 being shared ownership. Highway safety. Concerns have been raised regarding highway safety, in particular comments about the narrow road of Littlefield and the parked cars, which I've shown you in those photographs. Sherborne Town Council also set out that they raised no objections subject to a traffic management plan being submitted. As mentioned previously, that road is being widened as part of the scheme and that new pedestrian drop curb is being added. Highways raised no objections subject to a condition, and the provision of a traffic management plan wasn't considered necessary to make the scheme acceptable, so it hasn't been included as part of a condition. Residential amenity. Third-party concerns have also been raised regarding the impact of the scheme on residential amenity. However, it is considered that the properties and the windows of serving those properties have been designed so that the scheme would not have a significant impact on the living conditions of occupiers of any of the neighbouring properties. And 2 conditions that have been included to provide certain windows with obscure glazing, either fixed shut or with restrictors included on their openings. The recommendation for this one is to delegate authority to grant, subject to a legal agreement, and all the conditions are set out on the screen there. On the update sheet before you, there has been a slight amendment to condition 11, and that is just to provide slightly more flexibility in agreeing a scheme for the pedestrian drop curb. But that is everything. So that's with the officer recommendation to grant, to delegate authority.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Emma. The Highways Officers, Guy Tetley, do you have anything you would like to add to that?
Morning all. Emma has very kindly pretty much covered it all, I think, quite succinctly. So thank you very much, Emma.
Okay, excellent. But you're there if we have any questions.
That's correct.
Anyway, yep. Emma, Councillor Taylor is wondering if we have a map that is an overview of the area. Is that's the widest map you have? Is it? Not to worry if it is.
I have an aerial photograph, if that's any.
That'll be great.
Yes, thanks, please. Chair. Let's have that. Thank you.
The only thing I was reading, can I speak, Chair?
No, I can't. We're not discussing it. Can we just look at it for now? Because I still have to hear the rest of the presentations before we go to questions.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Good. Thank you. Anyway, that's there. You can come back to that. All right. Thank you very much. Now we have no public representations to be read to us, so we'll move straight to the ward member Councillor Hall, who would like to address the committee. Councillor Hall, you have 3 minutes.
3 minutes? Okay, right.
Well, you have up to 3 minutes.
Right, okay. I thought I had longer as ward member, but fine, fair enough. Okay, I'll make 3 points, please. The first point is this, that as an elected councillor for this area since 2011 and a resident living within a stone's throw for 20 years, I am more than aware of this site and its pitfalls and its promises. Do I support building on this site? Yes, I do. Do I afford the types and style of houses on this site? Yes, I do. Do I support the numbers? Yes, I do. Do I support this application? No, I don't. There are 2 reasons for this. The first reason is if you look on the map on the bottom left-hand side where it says Littlefields, this is an elongated S-bend where cars, because of the nature of the residential properties, have no off-street parking. This is a continuous row of cars, almost 24/7, 365. By the bottom left-hand side of the word Littlefields is a stretch of grass, which is owned by Dorset Council. This is a favourite site for large white vans. Now, why I'm saying this is because the NPPF paragraph 108 clearly states that when assessing sites that may be allocated for development, safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all users, and any significant impacts from the development on the transport network in terms of capacity and congestion or highway safety must be mitigated. Now, all those bits I mentioned about the parked cars make this road effectively a blind spot. You cannot see from one end to the other. Therefore, I cannot see how this access is safe. If you take, for example, the deliveries which are proposed, these buildings are to be sort of what I would class as prefabricated. They would need to come on large lorries. I cannot see how these large lorries are going to get through and access the site. Also, when these properties are potentially built, effectively they're not going to have a line of sight until they meet each other. Again, I question the safety. I question the safety that when we're asking residents when they leave a new housing estate, that the first thing they do when they get onto the adopted highway is to go on the other side of the road. I cannot see how that can be considered safe. The widening of the access road, I would state to you, is a misnomer because it's not that part of the road that is the issue. Highways wish for this entrance area that is to be widened and the turning circle to remain clear of traffic. As you saw from the photos, this is where many people park. I cannot see how this is going to be kept clear and safe. The bottom right-hand side, which Emma showed you, has a pedestrian access. This could have been widened and allowed a far greater and easier access onto the site, considerably easier to get onto the site. The lack of a traffic management plan, I believe, is completely unbelievable. When this site was cleared, the amount of debris, damage, etc. that was caused to Littlefields was horrendous, literally horrendous. So to not have a traffic management plan, I think is ridiculous, and I would at least ask members to have that as a condition. As I'm sure I'm now running out of time, I would just like to say that if these houses have been done from an access from that bottom right-hand side from Nook Road, these houses would be part of the Nook Road community. The way this development has been mapped out, almost these 10 new houses are going to be imprisoned rather than involved in the community by how it's been designed and laid out. I would strongly recommend that this committee refuses this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hall. And you need, I must ask you, you have to keep, I understand, your microphone on mute now for the rest of the meeting because you are not participating as a member of the meeting, but we have heard your views. Before I go to other questions, I would ask either Emma or Guy to comment on the questions of road safety and access that have been raised there by the ward member. would you like to come back and respond to some of those points if you can, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Guy.
Littlefield is not an unusual road, you know, in Dorset. Parking on the street is again not unusual. I personally don't see the issue that have been raised, as I say. The visibility there is acceptable. It's a very low speed environment by definition, you know, by the design of it. As the councillor has alluded to, the two right angle bends keeps traffic low. There are wide footways. Well, I say wide areas of highway, as I say, to the left and right. There are footways on either side. The widening of the actual access itself is welcomed, as I say. That enables easier comfort for two vehicles to pass through there. Yeah, as I say, I do not feel that there is any way you could refuse this on highway safety terms.
Okay, thank you. That's very clear. I have a number of members who'd like to ask questions, and I'd like to start with Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation. That's why I want to know if you to see whether or not the buildings that will be built there will be overlooking other houses. And as I completely agree with Councillor Hall saying the fact of the imprisonment, and I just don't think it's good enough. I'll vote against it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Chair.
This is question.
Mine's a question. Not
Thank
a comment.
you. Yes, please.
So my question is to, firstly, the highways officer that believes that the access road into Littlefields is okay. I just wonder what time of day the highways officer came and visited that site. I being the neighbouring ward member and a Sherborne resident for 60 years, or 62 actually, nearly. So I'd just like to ask the highways officer that. That's the first question.
I honestly don't know the time I went there. I have to confess.
It would
have been during the day.
It would have been during working hours when everybody's at work then, not at 6:30 at night when you cannot get another car around there. That's why Councillor Hall, I believe, has brought this up, because I used to have a friend that lived in number 1 Littlefields, and I'm talking 45 years ago. That was a problem. It's a bigger problem now. White van syndrome has taken over the whole street. People are parking on grass and verges. It's a hell of a mess around there when you go around there in the winter, because the ruts and the mud coming off the road is a problem now, let alone with another 10 houses. I absolutely agree with building these 10 houses, but that is one of the problems. And also, I'd like to ask the planning officer, or my second question, number 9 and 10 in this new development is a 2-storey building with flats in it that overlook the garden of 2 bungalows the other side. So consequently, the light into their garden, certainly as you're looking at the plan, the one on the left of number 9 or plot 9 and 10 is going to be affected until 2 o'clock in the afternoon with no light coming into the garden. So I am concerned about that one as well. So I'd like to ask the officer, do you think that's going to be a problem with those bungalows that are behind, because they're not houses, they're bungalows? Thank you.
Yes, could we have a comment on the overlooking, please?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of overlooking, there's only 2 small. Sorry, I'll just try and get the correct plan up. In terms of overlooking, the maisonettes on that elevation that faces the properties of Ridgeway, it's these 2 windows here. So it is small windows to serve the bathroom that would both be obscure glazing, and then this one at first floor would have the restrictor on it I mentioned. That means it can only be opened by 10 centimetres. So it can be open to allow ventilation, but it can't be open to provide views looking out. And then if I can go
overshadowing, overshadowing of the neighbouring garden for the sun?
So in terms of overshadowing, it was obviously considered as part of the application. You have got obviously the distance of the rear gardens of those properties between their rear elevation and the proposed 2-storey unit. The positioning of the unit means the roof slopes away from the neighbouring properties, and it also expands kind of not the full length of that rear garden, if that makes sense, that rear elevation of it. So it was considered to not result in a significant impact on those properties.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just checking who I think Councillor Fry, you had a question?
I've got 3 questions actually, Chair. One of them's in 2 parts.
Yes.
The first one, what is the square foot of these houses, please, and what is the minimum requirement for people to require to live in, please? That's question 1 in 2 parts. The second question was access via Nook Road considered, and could it be considered? And the third question is, what is the anticipated energy efficiency rating of these houses, please? As we know, all properties now have an A, B, C, D plus or minus in there. What is the anticipated grade of these houses, please?
Emma?
Thank you. In terms of space standards, the proposed dwellings all meet the minimum space standards when looking at the minimum number of bed spaces. So if it's a 3-bed property, it meets the standards for the 3-bed property. So they all do comply with space standards. In terms of obviously access off Nook Road, we have considered the scheme in front of us, which is the access off Littlefield. But I will also just put up the photo I have taken from Nook Road.
Chair, for what it's worth, I have visited the site and seen some of the issues there around the traffic congestion.
Yes.
So this is from Nook Road. But
I believe there's a substation to the left of there, but they're still accessible by vehicles through there, albeit one way, in or out one at a time. It is still accessible.
Okay. Like I say, obviously the scheme, we've considered the scheme that's put in front of us, which is the access off Littlefield. And I must admit, the third question was about
energy efficiency standards.
Yes.
Every house by design has an energy efficiency rating, and the house I'm sat in at the moment is an A+, for example, which is very high rated. I wonder what those are, bearing in mind they're new, they're constructed off-site and actually built off-site and put up in situ.
Sorry, we don't have that information in front of us at the moment. Sorry, Councillor Fry. But what we can say is that building regulations require 25% of the energy consumption to be from renewables. I know this was mentioned earlier. That sits outside the planning process, but Emma's highlighted in her report, these are more sustainable because of their construction methods. So there's a reduced impact on sustainability issues through their construction, but we don't have the actual rating before us, and that wouldn't be material in its own right in terms of our determination now. Could I make just one point on the highway impact issue as well, please? Because just very briefly, there's obviously an issue outside of the site of parking and inconsiderate parking, but what we have to be careful of today is that we're considering the highway impact of this proposal in front of us.
Thank you. Yes.
And this proposal does have sufficient parking in line with the highways parking standards, so there shouldn't be any additional parking generated from this site that's not currently in use on the wider highway network. And in terms of highway safety, there's very slow traffic speeds. I think I will we can confirm this, very low traffic speeds in this area, and park cars do reduce the actual speed. So in terms of highway safety impact, it's unlikely to be an issue, and we need to be considerate of whether we have a defendable reason if there was a subsequent appeal on those highway safety and traffic and parking issues.
Oh no, thank you. That's very clear there. But having visited sites in the past, I don't believe we think highway safety is an issue here. I think it's going to be highway congestion here. The fact that access cannot be achieved 24/7, in particular with parked cars on both sides of the road, blocking up the road. So I'm very comfortable with the parking allowances on the site. In fact, overall, I think it's a good scheme. It's the access which is particularly concerning. The photographs here were taken at a time of the day when everybody was away from the location at work, because if you look on the verges, you can see where vehicles have parked already on both sides, which will make it very restrictive for a fire engine to get around, particularly at the two 90-degree bends. And I think we have a duty of care to the residents in that area to make sensible decisions, informed decisions.
Okay, you're making statements now and we're still on questions, so if you could just can you just clarify for me please, because Councillor Fry has asked the question, is access adequate for fire engines and ambulances and indeed bin lorries to get in? Can you confirm?
I can answer that. I mean, obviously, most of that is dealt with under the building regs anyway.
Yes.
There should be sufficient width, as I say, through there. I mean, it's very important to remember here, if antisocial parking is occurring or unsafe parking, whichever you want to, well, I mean, I'm sure they can be both. You know, that is a police matter. You know,
yes.
Sorry, I would disagree with that. It's not a police matter. We have to deal with it as a council. It's also a planning issue. You cannot use other agencies to enforce issues which the council miss their responsibilities.
Yes, you've made a point. That's very helpful, Councillor Fry. I must allow other people now to ask questions, and then we'll come back to the discussion. Councillor Heatley, you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hall mentioned two potential mitigations of the congestion and traffic situation. One was that we should have a condition that there is a traffic management plan. I've heard of them. I don't think that is a problem. I am concerned about huge lorries trying to get through that small space during the construction. But can it be confirmed that that is a possible condition that we can make? The second concerns Nook Road at the other end and having an access there. In part, the question of the practicability of that has partly been answered. But is there anything procedural we can do at this stage that would make making an access there some kind of condition of an approval here? I just don't know.
That's a very, very sensible question, and the answer is we consider the application before us, not a different application that we might have preferred. So no, they're all what's open to us today is either to approve or not this application. What we can't do, alas, because we would all be so good at it, wouldn't we, in committee? What we can't do is redesign the application. So that was a helpful question. Councillor Heatley, to just clarify that. So you either approve or you don't approve the application as it is in front of you. That's our task for this morning, not to rewrite it. Can I ask for a question to response to Councillor Heatley's question specifically about the traffic management plan, which I think you said you did not consider necessary. Can you just expand on that, please, Emma? Or Guy, Emma or Guy, to explain why there's no traffic management plan and whether or not we can condition this. Emma?
All I would say is that we didn't feel it was necessary in this case to make the scheme in front of us acceptable. Obviously, to condition something, we have to consider it to be necessary and required, and in this case, we didn't.
Yes, I think that's a fairly firm steer to the answer about whether we can condition it. If our officers have not considered it to be necessary for this to be acceptable, we would then have to think very carefully before we conditioned it. So I'm not saying we can't, but we would have to do it knowing that our officers' recommendations was different from that. I now have Councillor Rideout, who has two questions.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I apologise if anyone's asked these questions already, but I had to address a matter outside with the electricity board. But I'll go ahead. Now, reference the internal highway layout. I understand it's going to be.
Chairman, it's Phil Crowder.
Yes,
just for Councillor Rideout's comment, can I just remind Councillor Rideout and all other members that the statutory requirements for virtual meetings mean that you can hear everybody and be heard by everybody at all times during an item. So if you missed part of this item for having to attend to the electricity board person, and you didn't hear all of the presentation or all of the questions.
I heard all the presentation. It was just the last two questions.
The requirement is that you've heard all of the meeting, I'm afraid. So
okay.
My advice, hard as it sounds, is that the statutory requirements are fairly strict. So unfortunately, my advice would be that you can't take part in this item having had to do that.
Okay, understood.
Phil, just for clarification, when you say that the councillor can't take part in this item, that means clearly she can't vote. Can she not take part in the discussion either?
Chairman, I think for consistency and for the avoidance of doubt,
right,
it means not taking any further part in the item.
That's very clear. Thank you. I'm very sorry, Councillor Rideout. I'm afraid that's as clear advice as we can.
That's all right. If that's the advice, I go with it. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. I have no further questions, but I have Councillor Andrews who's waiting to make a comment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Oh, we'll get this camera on. There we go. Thank you very much, Chair. Can I just say a lot of good questions. Fire engines, I don't think we have an answer to that, but I can tell you that this site was a garage site, and when there was a car fire down there, certainly within the last 10 years, the fire engines could not get through Littlefields. So that's a problem straight away. And if there was an ambulance required, I don't expect that would get through either because they're reasonably wide. Lorries certainly won't get through that site or through Littlefields when they're delivering these big prefabricated units. Luckily, the Dutch carts don't, or the refuse vehicles don't come round here till about 10 o'clock in the morning, where most of the traffic has disappeared and gone off to work, etc. I really am against this going ahead without a different access, a different way in and out of the site. I know that the site itself is adequately considers the cars that will be on that site, but it doesn't consider the congestion and the safety issues, because I think it is a highway safety issue. It's certainly if ambulances and fire engines are going to struggle to get through there. On those points, as much as I applaud the scheme for the affordable housing that's going to be in there, and God knows we need it, I cannot support this application.
You can't support it.
No. So I'm proposing refusal.
Thank you. If you are proposing to refuse against our not against, in a different outcome from our officer recommendation, we will need to you will need to identify the grounds on which we are going to vote. I will give you a moment to be thinking about that while I take the other comments, and I'll come back to you in a minute, John, with some grounds. Okay. I've got Councillor Heatley and then Councillor Fry both want to comment. Councillor Heatley.
Right, 2 points. The easier one first. Once again, I'm pleased to see the climate implications piece here. And I'm glad to see in it all three aspects of any new building, or at least, no, they're not quite there. The point is that when you build any new building, there are implications of the construction phase, not just the vehicles and so on that are there, but also the embodied carbon in the materials. The thing we normally consider about the energy use and generation in the building itself, and then where it is and what it generates in terms of people's behaviour when they are living in it, which is also mentioned here. This one again doesn't, as Councillor Fry has pointed out, doesn't say anything about energy generation or energy efficiency of the buildings, which I think is regrettable. I think we should try, as a matter of course, to say something about it. I entirely appreciate that in this case the local plan says a very vague requirement: new buildings, etc., are expected to achieve high standards of environmental performance, which doesn't give us a lot of leverage on it. That's the easy bit. The hard bit, I am personally terribly conflicted about this, and I'm still not quite sure how I'm going to vote. I have enough constituency cases of cul-de-sacs that get blocked at the entrance point, and the implications for emergency vehicles for that, to be very concerned about this. But equally, I am very concerned about getting 10 affordable homes. So I'm going to wait and see if someone says something which decides me between these things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fry.
Chair, thank you. Before Councillor Andrews put his proposal, I would like to make a recommendation that we defer this decision on this one. I like the development. It's a brownfield site. It's what we should be growing and helping. But I would like to defer to the next meeting to ask the planning officers to visit the site outside working hours to see the parking situation there.
Solution to this.
And then for them to have a conversation with the applicant and Dorset Council to see if there's a solution, either by amending the access road through Littlefields or altering it through Nook Road, which I don't believe would make a major rewriting of the application. And I think that just that conversation. So I would like to propose we defer to the next meeting. I don't want to refuse it because it's a good application. I absolutely support everything inside the field, inside the site. It's the outside I have my concerns, and I don't want to be seen to not supporting what is really a good application.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor Fry. Can I, Hannah or Phil, could I have some advice? That sounds like quite a major thing to be deferring for. Essentially, I think it's been suggested we defer in the hope that you come back with a better application, and I think that might be stressing the definition of deferral too far. Could I have some advice on that? I mean, what can we defer to, and what could you do with this application to bring it back to the committee that would answer these questions, that isn't effectively a significant rewrite of the application?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think my concern would be is that we might be trying to solve wider parking issues in relation to this scheme for 10 dwellings. And I think we have to be mindful of the fact of how much we could do to the wider highway network in relation to this scheme, which has been found to be acceptable in highway terms. So I think it would be difficult to know what our justification would be to imply that the applicant had to find an alternative access when this one's satisfactory. I think that would be the difficulty. I think in terms of highway safety, it doesn't seem that there's necessarily a highway safety issue, but there might be a wider amenity issue that's been referred to in the locality through inconsiderate parking of cars. But again, I go back to, how much can this scheme solve the whole of that? And I think we need to look at how much does this scheme contribute further to the already poor situation of parking? And in this case, it wouldn't, because it provides sufficient parking. The issues of access and fire engines and such like will be dealt with through building regulations. And if a fire engine can't get to a specific point, it might be a requirement to have a sprinkler system or other measures through building regulations. But that is covered by separate legislation, and we wouldn't be granting a scheme that then didn't have to comply with those regulations. I think that's just the only points I'd want to make on that. So I think we need to be careful why we're deferring, because the scheme in front of us is how to be acceptable in highway terms.
Hannah, having visited the location, I just wonder, there's some work that could be done by Dorset Council Highways, now taking off one of the lower corners there so that vehicles can't park, and tarmacking that effectively, and some work just on the road network up there would make it more sustainable and acceptable. I get that there's no highway safety as such, although children could run out in between the cars, but we have a duty to the wider community of that, and I appreciate our responsibilities actually are on site, but there will be a massive fallout on this one. And if a fire engine cannot get through and there is no sprinklers on the site and somebody does die, then that's our fault at this early stage.
Well, Hannah, comment. I mean, the hypothetical that if somebody dies, that the point is, I think Hannah just explained that we wouldn't be that if there's no building regulations would not allow a building to get built where somebody is going to die, and that is out with the realm of the planning committee. We are here discussing planning matters, so I don't think we must suggest that anyone might die from a building that Dorset Council allows to be built. I find that a little bit unhelpful. I think that we have clarified that there is adequate access onto this site, have we, from Highways point of view? So if we on grounds of access, you would therefore have to give me your grant if you're going to reject this proposal. I think I've heard from Hannah the advice that so I'm not minded.
Chair, the photograph taken by Highways.
I think we need to go. I think we need to decide this yay or nay. I haven't heard from Hannah anything that suggests that we've really got grounds to defer it. Have I understood that, Hannah?
Chair,
yes.
Might I comment?
You certainly can, Robert, because we'd like to get a good outcome here.
It's to Councillor Fry and all the other councillors. I appreciate what you're saying about highway matters. I think your terminology needs to be shifted from highway matters to amenity concerns, because the highway officer has been clear about his position. So really what your concerns are in the broadest terms are amenity, and that might help you focus your discussion. Thank you.
That's very helpful. That's extremely helpful. So we're talking about the amenity concerns caused by the residents by the unhelpful parking and the inappropriate parking and the inconsiderate parking. So my question then is that grounds, that amenity concerns grounds sufficient for you to refuse this application, members? Is that the direction where you're going?
Yes, Chair. Shall I just say it's this application around the unacceptable impact on the highway safety and the residual cumulative impacts on the road network. The application is to address the impact of the proposals on the area, and I think we have a duty of that in the MPPF.
Okay, so you're proposing its impact on the road network and highway safety.
I'm saying unacceptable impact on the highway safety and the residual cumulative impacts on the road network.
And the amenities you need to get in there.
Yes.
All they got to do is come back and put a pass in place in, or as suggested by Councillor Fry. But and I know that's not on this site.
No.
They need to do something. They will need to work in partnership with Dorset Highways to come up with a solution, because I really fear that something might happen up here, and you've already said it, that we can't, take it in fact that it's going to. But I love the scheme myself on the site, and I want this affordable housing. I just think there needs to be a solution before it's put up, and all those cars that used to park in the garages there, guess where they're parked now?
Right. So we have here the proposal that we Steve Savage from Highways. I just see your name's popped up. Would you like to comment on this, because we're about to consider turning this application down on grounds of the impact on the road network and highway safety, and I would very much value your views on how safe grounds we were. Steve.
Thank you, Sherry. Just the point I'd like to make here, councillors, is that in terms of the NPPF and what we can and can't recommend a refusal on in highway grounds, highway safety and cumulative impact, as has just been mentioned by the councillor. Now, highway safety, as far as I can see looking at this site, we've got an existing instance of people parking where they shouldn't park, which is a police matter to enforce. There's an amenity impact as a consequence of that. But the emergency service vehicles will be able to get through. The fire engines will move cars out of the way if they need to. But we've got to relate it to this application. And is there a cumulative impact from this application on the surrounding roads? My understanding is there isn't. There is sufficient parking within the site to cater for the new development. So we're not looking at parking decanted from the new site onto the highway. Is there a safety issue as a consequence of this development? Well, there are vehicles going to be driving in and out of it, and vehicles already drive in and out of it. So I would probably argue that there was no real difference with that. So I think you're on very sticky grounds here if you're trying to refuse it on highway grounds with regards to the NPPF. As far as we're advising you as Highway Authority, we can't see there are any sustainable highway safety refusal reasons. We can't see that there are any reasons with regards to cumulative impact here that would actually sustain a refusal as an appeal. That's why we've come to our recommendation. And I take on board Councillor Fry's points, particularly with regards to the inadequacies of the approach roads. This should really be subject to a separate consideration, if you like, or conversation with our road safety team at Dorset Council to see if there are any remedial measures that could be put in place which would assist the existing situation. I really feel that you need to distinguish between what is the existing problem and does this site make it any worse. My view, and I've discussed this with Guy before he made his recommendation, was that it wouldn't, and that's why we've taken our position, Chair. I hope that helps.
That helps enormously, thank you, and I hope members were listening very carefully because that was a very clear steer there. I have one or two more people who wanted to speak, and I think it's Councillor Andrews and Councillor Jones, because Councillor Fry was just speaking. Councillor Andrews and then Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thank you very much. I do understand what the Highways Officer Steve Savage has just said.
Leave this at the moment, Fred.
Thanks, Mark. Turn your mic off, Les.
Fine. Sorry, could we have microphones off, please?
Les, can you turn your mic off?
Thank you, John. Carry on.
I understand exactly what Steve's saying. You can't legislate for idiots, and you need to actually have enforcement if there are idiots parking. We have got a scheme in Sherborne now where we've got people out spotting police cars because there isn't any, and they're taking it like railway engines, you know, spotting them to see what numbers they've got. Is that ridiculous? I mean, in this side of the county, when without enforcement, you won't do anything, and the police will not issue tickets for a parking violation these days. So saying that is or an obstruction violation, they just won't do it. They don't waste their time on that. Yeah, I understand what Steve is saying, but that doesn't help the cumulative impact of the situation around here. And I understand exactly what Steve's saying. There are enough parking spaces on this land. But where there's more people, we're allowing 2 parking spaces per house, I do believe, or per dwelling. I still say that's not enough, you know, and it won't be if there's 3-bedroom houses there eventually. So I'm really concerned, and I understand what Steve is saying about it probably needs some input from the traffic safety team, but I would like to see that before this situation occurs and these buildings are built. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would just repeat though, Steve was very clear that in the view of our highways officers, there will be no cumulative impact on the traffic because there are sufficient parking spaces provided. We have to be careful here that we're not pitting our hypothetical concerns against the advice of our officers. That's just, you know, we need to be very careful here. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. You cannot turn this application down because some people happen to park on the roads approaching the site. That is not a reason to turn this down. And 2 spaces per dwelling is absolutely what would be recommended. And it, you know, if we turn this application down, it will go to appeal. We will lose. If you basically say, look, we're not going to have anything there because more people might park on the roads, then basically what's going to happen to that piece of land? Something's got to happen. I think it's a good site for development, and I would actually like to move the motion to, I would move the officer recommendation. You cannot refuse it on the basis that too many people park on approaching roads. It's just not a reason for refusal. Thank you.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much, Councillor Fry. I've got Councillor Fry now, and then I'm going to have to call for, we have had a proposal that we will refuse this, and I'm going to have to make you now, or not had a proposal, we've had a suggestion that you'd like to refuse it, and we've now had a proposal to support it. Councillor Fry, one last chance.
Yeah, I'd like to recommend we refuse it on the grounds of community amenity and the fact that parking is displaced. But my preferred option is to defer this for discussion to take place in advance because it is a good scheme. But if you're not happy with that, deferring it, then community amenity and displacing parking and traffic around the neighbouring area is my grounds.
Okay, I am not happy. I think I've understood the recommendation, the advice from our senior planning officer, that we really don't have grounds to defer, and I really don't see that we should be deferring this. We are the planning committee. We're here to make a decision on the planning application that's before us, and I would prefer us to do that, yay or nay, rather than deferring. I don't think it's going to look any different if when it comes back to us. Your grounds, therefore, that you are proposing that we should turn this down are on grounds of the cumulative impact on the traffic in the area,
neighbourhood amenity in the community, and the impact of this development in the local area. I'm sure that can be better padded out and worded.
I'm not sure it can, only in the sense that we've just had a very clear guide from the highways officer who, Steve, did
this
you
is
not?
Not a highway, I'm not looking at it as a highways traffic safety issue. I'm looking at a neighbourhood amenity issue.
Amenity issue, right? Okay, good.
Chairman,
So
Chairman, Phil Crowther, could I think just to clarify where I think and where my notes say that we've got to, I think we've had a proposal from Councillor Andrews to refuse broadly on highways grounds, which wasn't seconded. Which no councillor has yet seconded.
No.
We've then had a proposal from Councillor Jones to approve, and subsequently a proposal to refuse from Councillor Fry on amenity grounds. So I think in terms of procedure, you need to see whether any members are prepared to second those proposals in the and then take a vote if they are, in the order that the proposals were made. And
I can second if you want me to.
Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, there was a second point in response to. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Can I come back to it in a minute?
Yes, you can. The third thing, since you're there, Phil, the discussion of deferring, I am saying from the chair that I am not minded to defer, because I don't see how that helps. Is that reasonable?
Chairman, I think that's a reasonable position to take, but I think if there was without wishing to encourage further proposals, if there was a courage to, if there was a proposal to defer which was seconded and
then we will vote on it.
That, then the committee would have to vote on that proposal.
I'm without wishing to direct the committee, I'm trying to steer you away from deferral because I don't see that helps. But I will, of course, put a deferral to the vote if it is proposed and seconded in due course. But and I'm also not minded to pursue the conversation we're having about refusal on highways grounds because I've no seconder for that, and we've had, and again, I'm not telling you what driving the committee, but I'm advising the committee that I don't think the highways grounds are very firm. So I'm directing you towards the amenity.
And Chairman, I've remembered my train of thought.
Yes, please do.
It was in relation to the reasons that Councillor Fry has given, and to just point out to members that if you are considering neighbourhood amenity reasons and the impact of this development in the local area, which I think were the reasons that Councillor Fry gave for his proposal, you need to be very careful about expressing what those impacts are of this proposal and the reduction in amenity or the particular impact that it would cause, given that you've heard that there is sufficient parking on site already. So you have to look very carefully at what this development would do to adversely affect amenity or its impact.
Right, thank you. Councillor Fry, you heard that the challenges with you now to, I'm afraid, to come up with a form of words which I will then ask if anybody is prepared to second, that meets the proviso that our solicitor has just given us.
Chairman, sorry, can I just before Councillor Fry goes ahead, I've seen a message in the chat bar from Councillor Andrews, and I think that's significant enough that he needs to express that in the meeting rather than simply.
Yes, that's very helpful. Yes, Councillor Andrews, I presume your message is saying, and you will please confirm that you're no longer wishing to pursue your proposal that we refuse on highways grounds. Have I that correct?
You have that correct, Madam Chairman. I will withdraw, and as I support the actual development itself, I would like to second Councillor Fry's motion to.
Lovely, thank you. Okay.
I think, Chair, sometimes the less said the better in relation to this, and I think it's on community neighbour immunity is the issue that I am raising, the impact that this development and the subsequent houses will have on the local area. I'm doing this reluctantly because I like the development, and this is really difficult, and I appreciate the work that the officers have done.
Yeah.
And I think this is a defendable position.
Could I just clarify that the next in line was Councillor Jones' motion to support the recommendation, Phil, if the first was withdrawn?
Yes, Chairman, Hannah's right.
Yes, I haven't had a seconder though for Councillor Jones's proposal.
No, Chairman, but I think that proposal having been made, I think, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong by anyone who knows better, but I think that proposal was made first in time, so it's appropriate to see if there's a seconder for that before going to Councillor.
That would be very, very helpful, wouldn't it? And then we can, and then if we have to, then we can put our brains together too. Councillor Jones has proposed that we accept this application as proposed by the officers. Is there anybody who would be willing to second that? Do we have any?
Excuse me, Chairman. I did put RTS up a little while ago.
I'm sorry.
No. It's a difficult conversation going on here. What I would like to know, please, is Councillor Fry's proposal sustainable as a reason for refusal? If it isn't, then I might, it will help my deliberations. Thank you.
I think it's probably as it's written so far, it's not looking very sustainable. Could start, but I do need to have Yeah,
Chair,
all right.
if I
I
may.
think that's a fair question. Robert.
Just to say that, as I said earlier, amenity is a legitimate concern, so it is something that's defendable at appeal.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. So that, I hope that answers your question. Is there anybody then who would like to second the Councillor Jones's proposal that we accept this application?
Yes, Chairman, I would second that on the recommendation before us.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Then we can then put this matter to vote. I've had a proposer from Councillor Jones, a seconder from Councillor Penfold. I'm now going to vote, to ask you all to vote whether you accept this application, and we will take it from there. Okay, everybody know what we're doing. We're voting on whether you would accept it. Just so we're clear, Councillor Rideout.
Is there no way that we can defer this, please? Sorry to butt in, I really apologise. Is there no way we can defer this for discussion to take place, because I don't want to see this one fall? I really don't.
Well, you can propose and second that we defer it to a later meeting, but I have, you know, and then we can put that matter to a vote. But we are now voting on this. I have not had a proposal to defer. You've simply put in the chat box that you'd like to do that. So now proceed.
I'm seeking it. I have put it in the box. I put it in the box. I'm seeking the deferral of this decision for further discussion, please.
And I second that, Sharon.
Yes, but we are in the process of voting now, so that we must take that. We must follow the procedure.
It's going to fall.
That gives that. Then it's going to fall, and I don't want to see it fall if discussions can take place, Chair. I do like the development, but I think some work needs to be done behind it.
Yeah.
Possibly even a site visit for the panel to visit prior to the next meeting to see these, and or photographs of the appropriate time. And I do apologise for butting in, but this is an important matter.
Councillor Fly, we have to take them in order, and it may be that it doesn't proceed, but we need to take them procedurally in order that they've been stated, please.
Thank you. I must proceed with this vote because that's what's been asked for first, and that I have no choice about that. So we're going to go to the vote, please. Councillor Andrews, for, against or abstain?
Against.
Councillor Fry?
Against.
Councillor Heatley?
Against.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Councillor Penfold?
For.
Councillor Pothecary?
Against.
Councillor Taylor?
Against, Chair.
And Councillor Rideout is not able to vote because she was not present for the entire discussion. So therefore we are now right. So we are not minded to pass this one. You therefore have a choice. We have on the table a recommendation to refuse.
Chair, can I withdraw that one and put the defer in, please?
You can indeed. Thank you very much. That's very helpful because I would
like to defer for a site visit and further discussions between the applicant, Dorset Council Highways, to see what can mitigate the issues that we have raised. It's a good development otherwise.
We will defer for further discussions, and could I amend just to say, and a site visit if that is possible, because as you know, site visits are not being undertaken at the moment, and I wouldn't want to be too firm on a site visit and then find that we'd asked for something that we're not able to deliver. So would you be happy, Councillor Fry, with to defer for further discussion and a site visit if possible?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Can I have a seconder for that, please?
Chairman, sorry,
second that.
Yeah. I've had a seconder from Councillor Taylor. Phil, were you wanting to come in?
Yes, sorry, I might have missed it in the speed of the debate. I'd understood from earlier on in the debate that Councillor Fry was looking for a site visit between the applicant and officers out of hours. Have I missed?
I think
he said a site visit for committee members.
Okay, apologies. Sorry.
Chair, can I clarify that? I think it will be helpful for the applicant and the developers and Dorset Council to meet out of hours to look at the implications on there. I also think, if appropriate, it will be worthwhile committee members visiting to see the location of the amenity and the issues that, if they haven't visited already, that have been quite rightly raised. So there's two whammies in there a little bit, please.
Yes. So you want a site visit at an appropriate time of day by committee members, if that can be arranged, and you want further discussion, including a visit to the site by officers and the applicant to see the traffic at a busy time of day, if they have not already done that. Are we clear about that? I'm saying it slowly so that it can get into the minutes very clearly. I have had a proposer and a seconder that we defer this application on those grounds. I am now, without more ado, going to put that to a vote. Councillor Andrews, for or against deferral?
For.
Councillor Fry, for.
For.
Councillor Heatley?
For.
Councillor Jones?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Penfold?
For.
Councillor Apothecary?
For.
Councillor Taylor?
For. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much then. So we have deferred that application, and I do hope, because it is 10 affordable homes which we very much need in Dorset, I hope that that can come back to this committee without too much delay, with a bit more work done. And I would like to record here our thanks to the officers for the work that they have done so far on this application, because we're not sending it away because it's not good. We're sending it back to have another look because it could be better still. That I think that's fair. So we're looking for a way to support this application. I think it would be fair to say.
Well said, Chair.
That brings this meeting to the end, because we have no urgent business, do we? No, I'm told we have no urgent business. I am
Chair, you've got an application from Matt Hall to speak.
Yes, I'm aware of that, but Matt Hall is not participating in this committee. So with every respect, Councillor Hall, I'm afraid I can't ask you to speak because you're not participating in this committee. It now only stands to me to close the meeting and wish all of the committee members and all of the officers who worked so hard on our behalf the best possible Christmas at the end of this most extraordinary virtual year. We will meet again, no doubt, in January, still virtually, but looking forward to, I think, for the county of Dorset, let's hope for happier times ahead. Thank you very much indeed, and a very happy Christmas to you all. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Keep safe, everybody.